Hi everyone, welcome to a tactics video, this time how to use the glorious Lord Solar. Interesting miniature which I personally think is absolutely fantastic, tell me what you think. And I'm going to assess how to actually use them on the tabletop and also discuss to a degree how meta of a choice Lord Solar is. If you're new to my channel, I cover everything Astra Militarum from tactical videos like this, looking at how-to videos, how to actually use units, hobby videos like painting, kit bashing, and assembly, and also some lore videos as well. So Lord Solar Leontus, let's firstly ground ourselves in what this miniature actually does on the tabletop. At 150 points, you can see here, moves 12 inches, toughness 4, 3 up save, 4 up invul save, has 8 wounds, which is loads, 6 up leadership, and OC of 2. Now he's on an 80mm base, if you don't already know, which actually makes him a very big footprint. I think almost the same size as maybe a Scout Sentinel as far as the actual base size is concerned. Now his weaponry is actually pretty good. He's got a pistol which fired 2 shots at 12 inches, hitting on 2s at 8.22, so quite spicy. And then he's got 2 melee weapons, which essentially is 6 power fist attacks hitting on 2s at 6.22. And then his horsey, the robot horse, has got 2 attacks hitting on 4s at 4.01. So definitely when you look at him individually, at toughness 4 he is somewhat squishy, but with a 4 up invul save and 8 wounds, he is somewhat deceptively tanky. And then also his weaponry actually is quite spicy, so he's no pushover in inverted commas. Now before I get to his actual abilities, which we'll discuss in a fair bit of detail in a moment, let's compare it to some other characters, and I'll do this to sort of paint the picture of an important point in a moment. So we've got, for example, Lord Marshal Dryer. You can see he's got a 4 up invul save, he only moves 10, he's got 6 wounds, not as brave, and fundamentally his output is quite embarrassingly bad, given it's only 1 damage weapons, and he's got a 75 by 40mm base, so not as big, but certainly quite big. Then, for example, Lord Castellan, Acadian Castellan, who is an infantry dude on 28mm base, infantry character, but the key thing I want to call out here, which I missed on Lord Dryer, is that Lord Dryer, one of his abilities, is he actually gives you devastating wounds on the charge. The Acadian Castellan allows you to get sustained hits to the attached unit and himself, plus also you can fall back and shoot. So 2 abilities here, and also Lord Dryer here, which actually makes the unit he's attached to, or they're attachable, more lethal. Yeah, that actually can kill more stuff. And then go for example, Ursula Creed. She's on a significantly bigger base, a bit more of a scenery base, like a diorama base. She's also an infantry character. Now she gives you +1 CP to friendly units within 12 inches of a regiment unit. And also, interestingly, the unit she's attached to, you can get 2 orders affecting that unit at the same time. Now I paint that picture because as we look at Lord Solar, we can actually see he's got 2 distinct abilities, which actually are pretty good. Is that one of them you get +1 CP in your command phase, so you essentially every battle round have 3 CP, 1 CP in your opponent's command phase, 2 CP in your command phase. Now that is holistically much better than Ursula Creed we saw before, where she gives you -1 CP cost within 12 inches only to regiment, but Lord Solar gives you +1 CP all the time. Now he can then, and this is a crucial one, an interesting one to consider, is that before the game begins, before you roll to see attacker and defender, you can redeploy 3 Astra Militarum units before the game begins, and this is any Astra Militarum units, for everything from battle line, squadron, non-units that don't have those keywords like Ogrins, Rattlings, Gaunt's Ghost, for example, including putting them into strat reserves. So these abilities here you can see aren't about making units more lethal, they're about basically buffing your entire army. Now he can then give 3 orders, we can see this down here, and you can see give it to regiment, squadron, and now Titanic's been added back. Now again, if you're new to 40k, new to Astra Militarum, before the Codex was released, or actually quite a while ago, he could order any type of unit in the Guard Index, including, say, for example, Ogrins and Bolgrins, which was a very powerful combination at the time. But now it's just Regiment, Squadron, and Titanic. Now again, compared to his alternate models I've just pulled up here, Lord Dryer has got 3 orders, but he can only issue it to Regiment. Acadian Castellan has got 2 orders, can only issue it to Regiment. And then Ursula Creed can give out 3 orders, but only to regiment. So clearly Lord Solar's got a lot more flexibility. He can order both infantry, mounted units, obviously, Scout Sentinels, obviously, all the vehicles out there except for I can't think of any actually. Maybe the Cyclops demolition vehicle, maybe also the Valkyrie, and that single last flyer we got from Forge World. But he can mostly order pretty much most serious meta units, yeah. So that's an overview of his data sheet. The other key thing is he can be attached to quite a few units here, so Rough Riders or Death Riders, which would be a cute combination. You got all of the battle line unit options, Kazkin interestingly, which is cool, and also Combat Engineers, where previously Lord Dry can only be attached to Death Riders, and Cadian Castellans, and Ursula Creek can only be attached to the Cadian Shock Troops or the Cadian Elite, the Kazkin. Yeah, so that's grounding us in the actual data sheet. 150 points, a massive big base. I think he looks awesome, personally. If you have trouble with the sword snapping off, because the sword's up quite high, check out this short I did a while ago, how to magnetize Lord Solar. But the key summary here is he's somewhat tanky. He's only toughness 4, but he's got loads of wounds, he's got a 4-up invul save. He's actually got a little bit of output himself, and his abilities basically buff the rest of your army, not the unit he's attached to, largely speaking, yeah? So now let's go on to how I basically staged most of my other videos, is to look at the negatives of what he won't do. So at 150 points, he isn't cheap anymore. He used to be 125, which felt very good. And again, comparison-wise, Ursula Creed is 85 points. Acadian Castellan, I think, is, I should know this, 65 points, I think it is, for a Castellan. Yeah, 55 points for a Castellan. And Lord Marshal Dry recently dropped and is now, I think, 100 points. Actually, no, he's always been 100 points. So, you know, compared to the other options, he is expensive. He's got more expensive, but definitely he's not like, it's not like you write off because he's 150 points. And again, I just put Ursula because she feels like a direct comparison to a degree, because she gives you +1 OC, reduced stratagem cost. Now this is a bit of a minor one, is that he has got the mounted keyword, which definitely means that given we mostly play infantry or vehicles, he kind of sits in a weird place because he's not infantry or vehicle, obviously, but he can't move terrain like the rest of the infantry units can. So it's only a minor one, but do watch out for that. Is definitely, if you attach him to other units which are infantry based, you have to sort of carefully position him when you plan to move him next turn, because if you put him right in the corner of a terrain piece, for example, he has to go around, as opposed to his mates can walk through the terrain piece because we've got the infantry keyword. Now it's got a 12-inch move. You should be okay most of the time, but do watch out for this, because you could get like weird moments when you need to charge a unit and you get stuck because he's mounted everyone else's infantry, but it's potentially a smaller point. Now again, a smaller point also is that he has got a massive base. As I said, 80mm base, I think is the same size as a Scout Sentinel, could be wrong, which does mean he is harder to hide versus other smaller infantry characters like Acadian Castellan or Ursula Creed have got 28mm base or a 32mm base, so another one to consider. Also, as I said, toughness 4 does make him somewhat squishy, so it means anything serious that looks at him is wounding him on 3s, if not 2s. So if you stack enough shots onto him or get him into nasty melee, he will get sliced to pieces. But again, we'll come on to a point in a second. A 4-up invul save and 8 wounds is no joke. Now, as I said before, none of his abilities boost the lethality of the attached unit. So of course he can order the unit to do stuff, because they'll obviously have maybe the squad, the regiment keyword. They'll have regiment keyword, so they can definitely get an order. But even compared to Ursula Creek, can give that unit double order, so you give him move, 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 you then give him +1 ballistic skill, or you can +1 ballistic skill and rapid fire weapons, for example. He can't do that. Obviously, Acadian Castellan, you get sustained, which is fantastic. You can fall back and shoot, which is fantastic. And Lord Marshal Dreyer, which unfortunately is not a meta choice when attached to the Death Riders, at least gets lethal, devastating wounds. So again, Lord Solar is not going to make your unit more stabby or shooty. Now, a combination we'll speak about is that if you attach him to a battle line unit and a command squad combo, it becomes a massive investment. 280 points is a lot of points, and you've got this massive blob of dudes running around, and dudes and ladies. And if you use it for the combination I'll speak about in a moment, it's going to be a lot of points just holding your back objective. So it is a potentially big point investment. Now, this has gradually got more expensive because Battle Line have got more expensive, and also he's got more expensive. So again, it used to be a lot cheaper, this combination, didn't feel as expensive, but now 280 for a command squad, battle line unit and Lord Solar, it suddenly is pretty material. So what will this unit, what will he do, what's the positives? Now, his order flexibility makes him incredibly useful, very helpful. This means as you build up your list, you don't have to bring tank commanders, for example, or other infantry officers, obviously. So if you've got Lord Solar, given he can order everything in your list, do you have to take tank commanders? Why don't you just downgrade to just Leman Russ battle tanks, for example, or just Rogue or Dawn battle tanks? Why spend the extra point to take a Leman Russ tank commander or Rogue or Dawn battle tank? Just remove the point cost and use Lord Solar instead. And likewise infantry characters. So I think personally when I play my combined arm list, my characters simply are Lord Solar, Gaunt's Ghost for uppy downy objective play, and then a Acadian command squad attached to Lord Solar, and that's all my characters. I don't bring any tank commanders of any sort or any of the characters at all, because he does everything for you, so that's very good. Now again, the combination I'm speaking about is if you attach him to the command squad, attach him to, say, Acadian shock troops plus Acadian command squad, because you can do that. That means now his 3 orders can be pushed out to 24-inch orders because of the Voxcaster ability. Now this, for average players, including me, it's fantastic. It gives you maximum flexibility. It means you can have basically, as I said, just one unit, centrally deploy, we'll get into a second, and basically cover most of the board and be basically sending units off to do whatever they need to do. Yeah. So this, for average players like me, is a very, very good ability. It's a very strong ability. Don't underestimate that. And still, I think this really, for average players like me, is really powerful. Now, +1 CP is just great. Super reliable, always goes off. You don't have to have units within 12 of Ursula. You don't have to be relying on, say, a Voxcaster to roll a 5-up or a 4-up to get your CP back. You're not calling in an Inquisitor to farm your CP, for example. So +1 CP is just every turn, your turn, you start on 2 CP. Now this is really good because it means you can aggressively cycle crap secondary cards. So if you're playing competitive tournament style games where you have to pull secondary cards out, or even if you're not playing competitive games, playing with your friends, you're a bit more sort of relaxed, and you are using secondary cards, a key thing definitely now in the new chapter approved 2025, 2026, whatever it's called, is that you want to be getting rid of crap secondary. So imagine if you pull Assassination turn 1, there's no characters in sight. You know, you want to be removing that secondary and getting a new one, and you can do that because you can afford to, yeah, because you've got 2 CP every turn. Make sure you can always be basically getting the best secondary cards you can possible every turn. Or this means you can fund CP hungry detachments. So one potentially hungry detachment that I understand it to be is Hammer of the Emperor, the tank detachment. You want to have loads of CP to allow vehicles to move through terrain, to advance and shoot, to do whatever it does. Actually done it, or advance and shoot, or whatever it is. You want to have plenty of CP to fund that, and potentially also maybe the mechanized attachment, which has got some pretty nice stratagems in there. You want to have Lord Solar's ability, giving you that extra CP every turn, so you've got plenty of CP to go about using those stratagems. Now, definitely one which may, for anybody who's not super experienced playing 40k or Astra Militarum, is the redeployability. This actually, I think, is really helpful. Now, this allows you to play some potential deployment tricks. So maybe, if you want to be all tactical, is maybe you go heavy on one flank with, say, 3 Leman Russ battle tanks, all stacked up in that corner, ready to push out aggressively, and it forces your opponent to basically put more units on that side of the board. And you go, cool, I'm now going to pick up 3 of these tanks and move them over here, whatever it is. Also, likewise, if your opponent, if they potentially deploy a bit aggressively, leave some pretty aggressive firing lines for you to get turn 1 shooting, and they've got a unit which can't shoot you back effectively, do you pick up a Leman Russ battle tank, plonk it down, and basically have a nice tight firing line to hit a unit turn 1. If you go first or even go second, you've got a unit you can actively engage with turn 1. Or, as I simply sometimes use it, is if I've just made massive mistakes in my deployment, maybe put a unit in a position where it could be shot turn 1 by something quite nasty, just pick it up, move it into a place where it's safer, or simply, like moving through units can simply just be tucking it half an inch, because, again, maybe you've realised that you have got tanks in a position where they can't move freely, and turn one they're pushed up against terrain. Again, just moving an inch or two is still movement, and that is still correcting mistakes. Now another one, and it's going to be a bit of a spoiler, but actually I'll get to it. But again, you should always be using this ability. Now, and again, as said before, he is somewhat squishy at toughness 4, but he does have a decent defensive and offensive profile. He's not like completely useless. Let's pick on poor Ursula. Her weaponry is cute. She'll pick off a couple of wounds and she will die if she gets anything nasty looking at her, for example. Yeah, but Lord Solar is actually quite tanky, and his weaponry is pretty good. Like, 6 power fist attacks hitting on 2s, and 2 what are almost like autocannon shots, if not a bit better, kind of. It's actually pretty decent. So he will pick up stuff individually at least. So how do we effectively use Lord Solar? So this is going to be quite quick, but I see 3 potential scenarios, being you go solo, you put him by himself, and this is where I think certain attachments enable this, where probably, in my opinion, Hammer of the Emperor's a detachment where he could be by himself. He could just simply be sat centrally into a deployment zone, within 6 of other units, maybe tanks to be sent out to go and to drive through walls and do advance and shoot, or send a Kazakin Taurox out to die and drop off all the boys and do a load of damage. But actually, I would say outside of probably Hammer of the Emperor and maybe the mechanized attachment one, mechanized assault, is you probably would want to actually not do that, because this is where I joke here. If you're an expert at 40k, which I'm not, is that, for me, I just don't see a world where you wouldn't attach them to something, unless you're taking Hammer of the Emperor, where maybe he's just babysitting 3 Limon Russ battle tank vanquishers that are just shooting down in a nasty firing line, hitting on 2s. Is that if you're using, say, combined arms detachment, personally, a lot of expert players out there don't use him in attachment of thing. This is where, for me, I can't make him work by himself, except in Hammer of the Emperor or Mechanized Assault. And if you've got a perspective on this, let me know, of course. Now, the other option is you could attach him to 1 unit. Now, what I mean by what's the point is if you attach him to just, Rough Riders. Okay, that's cute. He can ride around with his friends and, hit something in melee. But given, again, they don't boost his order range, it doesn't make him actually that more stabby. You can make him obviously move further or +1 to hit on weapon skill at fixed bayonets. But again, because he's not making units more survivable or more aggressive, in inverted commas, what's the point of attaching just to Cadian Shock? There is maybe one use for Cadian Shock, but Jungle Fighters, for example, he doesn't have the scout keyword. He can't scout turn 1, so you're basically losing a lot of that ability. They could make him be more aggressive in combat in the sense he gets +1 to wound on the charge, but the point of this is that if you attach him just to 1 unit, maybe say Kazkin, he's not actively making him more stabby or shooty than these other options I've got here, or more survivable. Yeah, so this for me, and I'll come to one potential use with Cadian Shock Troops, but this for me, I'm not sure what you would do with him just attached with 1 unit, yeah? Now, the other option I spoke about is then the battle line unit, so any of the ones we saw before, so Jungle Fighters, Cadian Shock, or Death Corps of Krieg. And then given Death Corps of Krieg, those battle lines are going to have 2 characters attached to them. You can have Lord Solar plus a command squad, which therefore means you've got access to a Voxcaster. And that means, as I said before, you can send out his 3 orders to Regiment, Squadron, or Titanic, 24 inches away, which, again, for us average punters like me, is a fantastically good ability, yeah? Because, again, if you think he's placed in the middle of the board, 24 inches is obviously, it's like a massive big sphere. It's not 24 inches just one way, it's 24 inches all around him. So he effectively is covering 48 inches, yeah? 24 inches that way, 24 inches that way. That's what he's covering, yeah? Now, that's no different to if you used Cadian Castellan or Ursula the Creed, but again, given Lord Solar can do it to all the tanks and vehicles, Titanic, and also regiments, he can give more orders. So this personally is what I see the main use of him. Now, this next point isn't just for Lord Solar, but I make this point because definitely Guard Now is not a top meta army. If you've been playing Guard Now for all of 10th edition, you probably would have felt Guard have got very, very strong, and now we're tailing off, we're fading away. And and the reason why armies become meta armies is typically, well, there's two distinct, well, not distinct, but two obvious buckets. Is their rules get really good. So we, for a long time, had very good rules. We had Bolgrams, which could be ordered by Lord Solar, and he could send them off to do nasty things. We also had Aquilons, where their rule, they could deep strike within 3 inches, was just fantastic. They're examples of rules which were removed, which made the army less meta. And the other obvious way is just everything gets more expensive. So now everything generally is more expensive than, say, 12 months ago. Guard is no longer a meta army, let's be clear. It's not a top meta army. People still do very well, but it's not like it used to be. Yeah. This means every single unit, Lord Solar included, needs to be maximized. Now, I was chatting to a bloke I played last week in an RT, a guy called Lawrence, and he's new back to 10th edition, and he was saying, even as a newer player, he notices that you can't take any trash on your list. You can't take, oh, I want to take a Basilisk because it's cool. I mean, you can, but if you want to play in tournaments, every unit has to be tuned quite well. And this, again, is the point with Lord Solar, is if you're going to take Lord Solar, you have to always be redeploying 3 units, always. And if you're not sure what you should be redeploying, just stick a unit in reserves, because units in reserves are a fantastic option later. And this gets into some other videos done, but do remember that Guard, loosely speaking, once you deploy stuff, besides Gaunt's Ghosts, on the tabletop, that's where they're going to spend the game, yeah? Of course, they can move, they can drive through, they can drive around things and go that way, but if you put a unit in the corner of the board and put another unit on the corner of the board, they're not going to get to other ends of the board, like, for example, Jet Bikes Camp, for example. So what I'm getting to is that if in doubt, just put a unit in reserves, because then you can deploy them somewhere else. Yeah, you can deploy them in turns 2 onwards at another side of the board, or short a part of the board which is suffering, or surprise your opponent with something nasty. Yeah. Now again, obviously, I've said this before, but given he gives you +1 CP, you should always be cycling crap secondaries. Yeah, so you should be quite aggressive with this. Now, again, one potential example is if you pull Cleanse, yeah. If you pull Cleanse and you can only action on one objective, or you don't want to be actioning at all because you want to be shooting, this is one example, is you cycle Cleanse, which is 2 points. So it could be a bit aggressive, and maybe go for 1 at secondary, which gets you more points. So that's the level of aggressiveness you should be taking into secondary cards, is that given you've got the CP, you've got 3 CP every battle round, you want to make sure that you're always cycling crap secondaries or non-optimal ones, and always using stratagems, obviously. Yeah, you've got the CP. I mean, what else could you use CP for besides stratagems and cycle secondaries? But again, given we're no longer a top meta army, and here's 150 points, make sure you maximize every aspect of his rule. And this commentary is no different for any other units, like, I don't know, like if you're taking jungle fighters, for example, and you don't scout move them, you're just paying for nothing. You're not actually using that value, obviously. And again, I'm just drilling this point, but like, make sure you issue 3 orders per turn. You can't always issue 3 orders, maybe things are out of range, everything's dead, but again, always be issuing orders, because you want to maximize the 150 points you paid for Lord Solar. Now, this is what I spoke about with the Acadians, is if you are going down the command squad route, you attach them to some Acadian shock troops and Acadian command squad, I would suggest going with Acadian shock, because this means you can sticky your home objective with the Acadian shock ability, and then, as we'll come into in a second, you can push them off the objective and actually still hold your home objective and actually use this massive blob of models to go and do stuff. Now, this is again obvious, but make sure when you deploy him, he's centrally deployed in a position where he can maximize his order reach. Yeah, so as I said, 48-inch bubble is actually pretty big, but that's not going to cover the entire board. So make sure you've got him in a position where you can string out his mates to screen the backfield from 9-inch deep strike, maybe 6-inch deep strike, to stick your home objective. Be in a position to maximize his order reach, but not too aggressively. Don't want to get him charge turn 1 or 2. But you do want to make sure that he has got maximum reach. Now, what I mean by the command squad strung out here is, given the command squad has also got a platoon commander, whatever they're called these days, and he can give a single order, maybe 2 sometimes, is that have him on the opposite end of Lord Solar. Yeah? So Lord Solar's here, string out the command squad, so that infantry character is another probably, let's call it 7 inches. So then that officer can be covering 24 inches further out as well. Yeah. So do make sure you're actively positioning the command squad commander, the platoon commander, to be quite far away from Lord Solar. Keep coherency so when models die, he's in the right spot. But don't have like Lord Solar next to the platoon commander, because then they're like basically 24 inches together. So if you push that dude out a bit further, you're covering more of the board with infantry orders, regiment orders, yeah? Now this is then a key point, is that given if you've got Canadian shock troops and you stick in the backfield with them, that means your home objective is safe, and let's pretend you're playing an army that can't uppy downy and put models into different places, turns 4 and 5. If that's not the case and you stick it in your backfield with Canadian shock troops, make sure turn 3, you're actually pushing up him and his friends to actually make sure that come turn 4 and 5, they're not so far back at the board that they actually can't do anything. Because again, 280 points, whatever it is, for him, plus a command squad, plus a battle line unit, is a lot of points. And again, given we're no longer a cheap army where you can just throw things around, you want to make sure that he can actually contribute to the game comes turn 4 and 5. So that could be maybe applying a weight of fire onto a unit, which is quite nasty, even charging him into combat, because he, as I said, will pick up units. His output is no joke. 6 attacks hitting on 2s at 622 means you will pick up a lot of stuff. He's got the horsey attack, and then also, with the pistol, he will kill stuff. And crucially, understand that his big blob is actually quite tough to get through. You're going to have 15 or 16 models attached to him. You've got the med pack and the command squad and Hillback D3 models. So actually chewing through all these mates is actually quite tough, yeah. Because if you were charged something that was remotely, not hyper stabby, and you managed to kill, say, 2 or 3 models, are they going to get through 15 attached dudes? The answer is no. So Lord Solar's going to have 2 turns of kicking stabbing that unit to death. So again, if you've gone the command blob, your opponent can't uppy downy and steal your home objective, you stick in the backfield with some Cadians, start to push him up, push him around terrain, as I said before, because he's got a massive big fat base and he can't move through most terrain pieces. So at least in turn 4 and 5, he can move forward and sit on an objective with all his mates, hold that objective for the end of the game, scoring potentially. So that's my perspective on Lord Solar. So his use is somewhat obvious. I mean, I've really drilled this point here that given he's 150 and we're no longer a top meta army, you want to use every part of his data sheet. Again, I think the key point is he doesn't make the unit he's attached to better, he just makes everything else better. So that should sort of dictate what you attach him to, and as I said, I think the main use is either you run him solo or you just go the full mega blob. Now, that little combo I was thinking was potentially, if you just want to take him solo, but do want to keep him bubble wrapped with some friends to make sure he doesn't die too quickly, is probably Cadian Shock. It is a good choice because you can attach them to 10 Cadian Shock. They can stick you in the backfield, they can screen the backfield for a bit, and then again you can run him out and actually start to sort of, he can start to maybe charge stuff or shoot stuff with his big glorious pistol. So potentially the only option I think here would be Cadian Shock, because they can stick you the home objective, as I said, and then at least you've got a bit of bubble wrap for him in case it gets hit by something nasty. But then I don't think attaching him to anything else is really worth it, besides it looking cool. Yeah, him with some Rough Riders would be cool, or some Death Riders, but that's just it. So certainly I think for us average punters, this is the way to go, the command blob combo. But again, make sure you're getting it in the mixer, turns 4 and 5, yeah, because 280 points to be sat there all game is not optimal, albeit he can do some cool stuff for the rest of your army. So, what do you think of Lord Solar? How do you use him personally? Have you got any questions or comments about what I've thought about here? But I still think he's a good unit. Within the confines of the rest of the codex, definitely, because stuff have got more expensive. Ursul's now 85 points, is that the comparison now, he feels fairly costed. Again, that's in the confines of our codex. Is Guard fairly costed at the moment? As far as the overall meta is concerned, you could probably debate, probably a bit too expensive, but Lord Solar certainly now feels like an actively good choice in the confines of the Guard codex, yeah? So what do you think? What do you disagree with? What do you agree with? How do you use Lord Solar? How do you think he looks? I think he looks awesome personally. He looks just like a big pompous, bastard who's setting boys off to death, but that's cool. So definitely let me know. So if you enjoyed this and want to support my channel, you can do so with a like, comment, or by subscribing. Joining my Patreon platoon if you're super keen, or becoming a channel member. Additionally, you can also buy some super cool custom dice I had produced from the lovely ladies and gents called the Dice Brand in the US of A. Check down below on details how to buy these dice. They're super cool with camouflage and my channel logo. Massive thanks to all my subscribers, Patreons and channel members. I really appreciate the support to give to me. So get your bayonet sharp, last gun oiled. Faith for the Emperor strong. Patreon Platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Glenn. Tank Commander Mitchell. Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten. Lieutenant Burke Nielsen. Lieutenant Smith. Colour Sergeant DuPont. Sergeants Adal, Scott, the Colonel Merrill. Veterans Gibson, Hall, Lundeen. Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Easingwood, Hills, Lyons, Malik, Nitton, Medicae Rolfe, Tontkin. Conscripts England, Evan Gunn, Goodwin. Honorary Members Balgrim King, Syker Smith, Cyan Gaylard, Aquilon Nassim.